Hi, this is Mike, Family DIY TV, and
a farmhouse sink.
today we're installing a farmhouse sink. Today we're installing a Kraus sink. I believe that's how you say it. Most likely I'm pronouncing that incompletely wrong, or wrong 100%. All right, so the first thing we're doing here is we're looking at the width, all right? So if you look at this is perfectly centered. And unfortunately, it's like there's only this little sliver, and there's no way that I'm gonna be able to keep this sliver in this case. So I'm actually just gonna, in a way it's good and bad, but what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna cut this all the way across and cut this off, and then maybe I'll have to fill this back in later, okay? So the reveal is gonna be 1.5 inches. How did I get 1.5 inches? Well, the standard overhang for a countertop is 1.5 inches. Okay, so what am I gonna use? I'm gonna use something that is 1.5 inches. I don't know, maybe a 2x3, maybe a 2x4. So what I'm doing is I'm holding it like this, right? Making myself a jig, putting this on, drawing a line. Okay, so this right here, we want to be right here, okay? So that's our first line we need to determine. So now what I can do is I can move this out 1.5 inches. Okay. All right, so now I have my overhang of 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches? 1.5.
1.5 inches.
1.5 inches. Now what we need to do is we need to determine where is this sink gonna end. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure from this line here, right, to this back here. This to that. Okay, 19 inches. So I'm gonna take that measurement, I'm gonna move this measurement down to here. I'm gonna go 19 inches. 19 inches. Okay, now the reason why that's important is we need to make sure we have enough space, first of all, for our faucet and our plumbing, which we do. I think we have enough room there. The next thing we need to do is we have to also think, this top of this needs to be flush with the top of this cabinet. So if this sits on top of here, it's not going to be flush. It's going to be proud of this material. It's a 1/16 of an inch. So we need to remove, I would say it's 1/16 and maybe a little bit over a 1/16 of an inch from this space here, this gap here, all the way out so that this sits flush. So we're going to come down about a 1/16 of an inch all the way across and remove that. The next thing we need to determine is where do we need to cut the front of this, all right? So I need to come down the depth of this, of course. So that's 9 inches. And then I need to add the 1/16 of an inch that we're gonna take off here, right? So that's 9 and 1/16. The last cut we need to make is an area for this piece to fit into, okay? Obviously it won't fit in here. There's too much material here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is now that we have our spacing, we're 1.5 inches off. I'm just gonna use my straight edge, my speed square, line it up to there, and draw a straight line down. So I'm gonna remove all this material down to the 9 and 1/16 once we get there. And that'll give us a nice spot to fit into, which you'll see. So now we have a plan, we can now get into the cutting part. All right, so how are we gonna cut this, okay? We wanna cut it with the most teeth cutting instrument that we have, okay? So I'm gonna use my jigsaw. This is like an 18 blade per whatever. You could also use a circular saw, but I recommend maybe getting a trim blade. People use oscillating tools for this. That's a little risky because it moves around. Hey, if you have it and it works for you, but today I'm gonna use a jigsaw. Now, when you use whatever blade you're using, you also want to, I know I'm kind of beating this with a dead horse with this line thing, but you also have to consider the width, or the width of your saw blade. So whatever it is, you have to make sure you're on the right side of the line. So consider all of that, right? Because if I cut on this line, on this line with this blade, so if I put this blade here, I'm actually gonna be cutting down there. That's where my ending point will be. So now I have to consider, where do I need to be on this line to be at 9 and 1/16? So maybe I need to cut the line off, which it looks like I do actually. Now that I'm looking at it, I need to cut this line off. Before I was saying keep the line. I'm gonna cut directly on the line in this case, okay? Now you may cut on the one side or cut on the other side or cut the line directly off, but just consider the width of your blade. All right, so we're getting ready to cut. So this is the material we're removing. So you can see we connected the line, the 9 1/16 down line to our offset line down here. So all this material off the front has to come off. We've set it in, you can see it's sitting on the lip, and now we're just checking our reveals by using our 2x4 like you were saying, and everything is perfect. We're checking on both sides. We did have to tweak this one a little bit. So now we're good here. We're good with these cuts. Now we just need to take that 1/16 of an inch off of here so that this sits recessed into here. All right. Okay, so we need to take a 1/16 of an inch off. Luckily, our jigsaw blades are a 1/16 of an inch. So what we're doing here is we're trying to make a jig using a drywall square. We're basically placing this in here and using that as our guide. That's how much we want to cut off. All right, and then we're going to use our oscillating tool to cut this off. So let's go.
I would say so.
All right, so that's how you install a farmhouse sink in a Click Studios cabinet. Okay, so this base was made by Click Studios, the actual wood part, the cabinet part. The sink that we use was from Cross. It's an undermount farmhouse sink, which actually makes the install a lot easier. Okay, you don't have to add any extra supports on the bottom like you've probably seen in other videos. We made a video on how to add the plumbing. There was no plumbing here, as you could tell from the video. I'll put that as a link at the end of the video. So as far as installing it, that was it. The only thing we had to do was get our countertops installed, which you can see now we have quartz countertops that were installed. So the sink actually needs to sit flush with the top of the cabinet because the countertop is gonna go over the sink and over all the cabinets, okay? So that's why the lip has to be in. That's why we had to cut that 1/16 of an inch off the top. Okay. We are doing a full kitchen renovation, so we are filming all of this, okay? So if you're doing a kitchen renovation or thinking about doing one in the future or thinking about even hiring someone, please subscribe to the channel. Please like this video, share this video. We'll be putting out a lot more content around how to DIY your own kitchen. We completely DIY'd this kitchen. We didn't hire out anything except for the countertops, okay? So we're making a video on how to do all that. But I'm Mike, Family DIY TV. I'm out.